And showtime. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. We'll look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I am executive editor of the ChannelPro Network, also a co-host of this program. I am joined this week, as I am every week, by your other co-host, Eric Simpson, a business transformation and improvement advisor to MSPs and other IT providers. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Rich. I'm trying to frantically finish up last minute work this week before I hop on a plane and see you next week in Miami Beach.
Looking forward to that. Yeah. So folks who are watching on video can see I'm in a hotel room again. That's because I'm in Phoenix, Arizona at a TD SYNNEX event we'll talk about in a moment. But you and I are going to be together in another sunny place 3,000 miles from here, Miami, for the Ingram Micro Cloud Summit next week. So this will be our first chance in a while to actually record this in the same room.
Yes, I look forward to it. We had a little bit of extra fun the last time we were together at an event this year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's dive right in, Eric. And as I said, we're going to be talking about something related to the TD SYNNEX event I am at this week. It's actually a meeting of their Tech Select partner community.
Mm.
Tech Select is one of their three communities. This particular one kind of leans in the direction of what TD SYNNEX calls advanced technology solutions. So think infrastructure heavy solutions, sophisticated, typically with a services component.
Hmm.
So project work, basically. And I want to preface what I'm going to talk about a little bit here by emphasizing that I don't want anyone to come away from this thinking that the mood among the partners here is gloomy or anxious or anything of that nature. In fact, the statistics shared by TD SYNNEX from the stage here at the show were very upbeat. They said, business normally kind of drops off after the holiday season in January. They said it stayed strong in January. If anything, it's been on an upward trajectory. This has been especially true for their specialized partner communities at TD SYNNEX. The Community Solve organization in the US, which covers all three of TD SYNNEX's partner communities, saw revenue or has seen revenue climb 15% in the current quarter, which ends at the end of this month here. So things are going very, very well, not only for TD SYNNEX, but for its partners and the partners that I've been speaking with. But two things that are maybe a little bit worrying did come up in conversations with partners here, and in one case from the stage at the conference. So for one thing, we're all familiar with the supply chain issues that everyone in the channel and vendors alike, everyone is dealing with right now. For the project-oriented partners at this Tech Select show, that is actually presenting some cash flow issues because they will sit down with a client, they will get the okay on a project, they will place orders for the hardware component of that project, but they're not actually going to get paid for that hardware until it has arrived and it's fully implemented and has been accepted by the customer. And that gap between placing the order and receiving the goods and implementing the goods is creating some cash flow pressures for the Tech Select partners here. And TD SYNNEX talked about some things they're doing and some suggestions they had for navigating that issue. But in my conversations with partners about this a little bit, another thing came up that I thought was kind of interesting, Eric. So again, business is booming for most of the partners here right now, but they are all acutely aware of the fact that this will not last forever. What goes up comes down. It's especially true of economies. So things are going very well right now, but we're all hearing a lot about inflation, supply chain issues persist, interest rates are going up. Sooner or later, everybody is aware that things are going to turn in the other direction here. And some of the partners I spoke with this week are a little bit concerned about when that's going to happen and how that's going to impact them, especially if supply chain is still a problem. And not only is demand down, but they have less stuff to sell as well. And so nobody is making serious course corrections, Eric, right now, but you could hear the murmuring of concern about this among some of the partners. They were saying might be a little bit more reluctant to make an acquisition now than I would have been otherwise, might be a little bit more inclined to focus on the recurring revenue portions of my business that are going to be a little bit less vulnerable to an economic downturn than the project work. I bring this up mostly, Eric, because I want to kind of get maybe a second tip of the week from you about this in terms of what you would advise partners to do in a situation where business is very strong and you have, but you know that it won't stay that way forever, and you can see some signs in the economy that we might be nearing a peak at some point soon. Do you lean on the gas, take advantage of what's out there for you right now, and just count on your ability to deal with a slowdown later? Or do you prepare yourself in certain ways, if that's even possible, for that slowdown, knowing that it will come eventually? Any advice for folks in the audience, Eric?
Well, I've got to say, Rich, it's almost the perfect storm of unwelcome circumstances, right? Everything that you've mentioned is creating fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Add to that, Wall Street, the stock market, I mean, tanking, crypto tanking, right? So there is this, this feeling of, normal feeling of, boy, I need to, contract my risk profile, right? I need to be extra super risk averse right now. And so I'm going to even layer on top of that Sunday, right? That soup Sunday of unfortunate circumstances, the situation that many partners have where they've lost some staff, right? The great resignation that we've been talking about, staff being poached. They're having trouble hiring staff because it is so competitive now. So you're asking me to look into a very murky crystal ball and offer some suggestions. So a couple of things that I'll offer, hopefully. Stay positive. Stay positive, right? This is a cycle. Everything is cyclical. You will get through it. But relying more heavily on traditional project-based work when we're now having to, in some cases, maybe finance some of our clients and become the bank, work with your vendors and distributors, get better terms. Many distributors, including Tech Data and Ingram Micro that we've already talked about, and vendors have programs to help partners through this time. Lean on them so that you're not carrying the weight. Talk to your clients about negotiating payments in advance if you can for the hardware, even if it hasn't arrived. I know when I had my MSP practice, Rich, we never financed any hardware or anything like that. We asked our clients to pay for that in advance. Now, of course, you can't bill for labor until the hardware gets there either, right? So maybe there are some things you can do there. Lean more towards cybersecurity services, lean more towards cloud migration services, deliver services that are more labor-based, that are more strategic, that you can now, continue to bill your clients for and build a strong base. Now's the time to evaluate your solution stack, right? And we've talked about this point on this show before, Rich, is does your stack today meet the needs of today's buyers, right? So if we've heavily been leveraging project-based work and project-based services over the last few years, well, guess what? Times are changed. Adjust your business strategy. Sit down and look at how you can pivot to stay ahead of what your clients are investing in today, and that is cybersecurity. That is cloud migration and cloud application support and remote workforce support and maintenance. So maybe, Rich, you asked me to add an extra business tip of the week. Maybe that is the business tip of the week because it ties in so well with what you've been hearing and what we are all feeling here in the channel. And this extends to our clients as well. They're having these same supply chain issues. In fact, I did a webinar last week or earlier this week where we talked about insulating yourself from some of these supply chain pressures, and even to the point of offering supply chain audit services to end user clients, right? Evaluating their risk from a supply chain perspective and helping them plan to mitigate that risk as well. So it's big talk, it's big buzz, it's big concern. So what can you do and what can you control? Work with your vendors, look at your strategy, pivot and adjust, listen to your customers, work together with them so that they understand that, hey, you know what, I can't float 90 days worth of payments on hardware, right? So work with me and let's work together so we can get through this together. Kumbaya, everybody. Campfire time.
And it's similar in that respect to something we spoke about on this program recently. The idea that you can talk to your customers about raising prices, for example. This is another area where you can have an honest dialogue with the customer about the cash flow issues that a normal way of business maybe is presenting. And one of the things you said actually aligns pretty closely with a suggestion that the folks at TD SYNNEX made at the conference here. You were talking about maybe billing for hardware up front and the labor later on. They were kind of talking about partial billing as a strategy that you can use. They didn't kind of split hardware off from services exactly, but they said, if 60% of what you need for a solution is available now, you can charge for that now and have the client pay for the rest of that later on. And there were a lot of partners here, who were skeptical about whether their customers would do that or not. But I'm sure there are a lot of people in our audience skeptical about whether or not their customers would accept a inflation-related price rise. We've already covered that. They will really, they're doing this with their customers in a lot of cases too. You also touched on financing, which is something that TD SYNNEX emphasized here, that they can take some of that risk for you. They have a much bigger balance sheet. You don't really, in this uncertain climate, want to be a bank to your customers. And the other thing I really liked about the advice you offered there, Eric, is that rather than reacting to what's happening in the news here, it was really more about, I think, feeding into longer term strategic thinking. So you really ought to be rethinking, readjusting your project services mix anyway. If that's something that would be especially useful to you in a recessionary climate, if we're headed for something like that, then go ahead and go down that road maybe a little bit faster than you were going to before, with a little bit more alacrity. So don't, no knee-jerk reactions here, people. Don't overreact. Don't kind of cheat yourself out of growth that might be still out there for you. But think about how some of the things you should be doing anyway can potentially help insulate you from risk down the road.
Absolutely, Rich. And and one last thought. You kind of stirred a little bit of additional thought in my brain. You talked a little bit about folks are maybe thinking about holding back on acquisition and things like that. Let's talk about company valuation, right? So when you look at the mix of service revenue that a ChannelPro receives, the different types of revenue are valued differently. There are different valuation multiples. Obviously, MRR delivers the highest valuation multiple. Project services, much less, maybe even half, when we're valuing organizations from an M&A perspective. So again, the changes and the pivoting that you're doing now will serve you later, not only from insulating you from any economic, peaks and valleys of recession and things like that, but also will help improve the valuation of your organization when and if you should decide to exit.
All right. Well, that was a combo top story tip of the week for you folks. And it leaves us with time for just one more story. This one comes from the world of artificial intelligence, actually. I found this kind of interesting. So there's a company called Tideo that works in the chatbot space. And one of their employees recently spent 30 hours asking questions of OpenAI and Cortana and Replica and Alexa, some of the better known virtual assistants, AI-driven technologies out there. And here are a few things. Some responses that this individual got based on those questions. Yes, according to artificial intelligence services, it's okay to use the hairdryer while showering. Drinking vodka for breakfast sounds, quote unquote, awesome. Drunk driving, totally fine if you feel you're going to make it. And this one, I can only imagine what the question was, but the answer basically was, yes, you should consider selling your children for their own good. Let's see. There's something about robbing a bank. I think you get the idea, folks. It's amusing as heck, Eric, but it also does point out, doesn't it, that for all the justified excitement about AI right now, we really are at the infancy of that technology right now, and you got to be cautious about what you ask and the degree to which you rely on AI right now. It's getting smarter all the time, but it ain't that smart yet sometimes.
No kidding, Rich. I think, we all think, Skynet, right? The rise of the machines. I think right now we're still in dumb Skynet right now. So it's got a ways to go before, we really, should be afraid of AI taking over the world, right? It's got a long path to evolution, I think.
And if anyone here in the audience has actually tried vodka for breakfast, let us know. But it doesn't sound like an awesome idea to me. It could be wrong. Well, you know what? A Bloody Mary, right? Sometimes vodka for breakfast actually maybe does work. So maybe we'll give AI partial credit for that one.
Yeah, as long
Either
as
way,
you're not
folks,
driving home in case just because you can make it when you're drunk.
yeah,
That's the
whether you
crazy.
think you can make it or not, folks. Yeah. You know what? That is all the time we've got for you this week in the 5 Minute Roundup. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be back again next week in Miami with another episode for you. We are both a video and a podcast these days. So if you happen to be watching the video, but you do listen to podcasts, go to your favorite podcatcher, whether that's Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it, you're going to find us there. You can subscribe, you can rate, you can review. We would thank you for all those different things. It's going to help folks out there who might enjoy the show find it a little bit more easily. If you are listening to the podcast, but you want to check us out on video, easiest way to do that is to go to YouTube and look for the ChannelPro Network channel there. Another opportunity for you to subscribe. And if you click the little bell icon, you'll even get notified when the new episodes go up. You can read some of my reporting from the Tech Select event. Also get great business growth advice for your company every day at channelpronetwork.com. We've got terrific new content for you there going up every day. And if you want to learn more about Eric and the work he does with his clients, please visit eriksimpson.com. So again, we thank you very much for joining us, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your week, ladies and gentlemen, because Eric and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.
Ready.